r/explainlikeimfive. Yasho to K says, explain like I'm 5. Why are computers faster at deleting 1 GB in large files than 1 GB of many small files? Fiendish Rabbit says, because they are not really deleting them. It's a registry change that says section so and so on the hard drive is no longer used by file X and is instead now free to use. The ones and zeros that make up the file are still there until you do a deep reformatting and deliberately overwrite them with random 1/0s, or when that space is used up by a new file. The size of a registry entry for a big file is only marginally larger than one for a small file. Papercut 2008 UK says, because it's not actually removing the file, it's just removed from the registry, which is quick. Imagine ticking one box vs ticking 1,000s of boxes. CC-5576-05 says, when you delete a file it doesn't actually get deleted from the hard drive. The data is still there, you just delete the information about where to find that file and say that this part of the hard drive is free to be written to. So deleting any file takes roughly the same time, no matter the size. You can then see why it would take longer to delete thousands of tiny files compared to deleting one large file. Old Crustabits says, imagine if you will picking 52 cards up off of the floor instead of picking up a whole deck still in the package. Zelausadil Key 8823 says, let's say I throw a whole corn cob on your kitchen floor and ask you to throw it out. Let's say I also strip all the corn off the cob and throw the kernels on your kitchen floor and ask you to throw them all out. Which one would you be able to do faster? r/explainlikeimfive. Fuckdog says, explain like I'm 5. What exactly is vinegar and how is it made? How are there multiple kinds of vinegar and how are they made? And what is the difference between vinegar today and vinegar 1000 years ago? Omnizoom says, all vinegars are acetic acid solutions, essentially the same way most cakes are sugar, eggs and flour, but if there's other stuff in there or different processes used in cooking you can get different end results that are still cake. White vinegar is essentially just acetic acid and water. Pickling vinegar is a stronger concentration. Cleaning vinegar is also stronger and may have other additives making it unsafe to consume. Other vinegars is where it gets more fun because they can be aged, co-fermented with other stuff for flavors and just not distilled to become cleaner. White vinegar. Adorable Growth 6551 says, you can make it yourself, it is very easy. I will trust the science to others. All you need is a large glass container, some fruit scraps, and some mother which is acetic acid bacteria. You can get it from non-pasteurized vinegar. They sell it in grocery stores. You just fill your jar with your fruit and water, add some of the vinegar, cover lightly, like with a cloth, so the product can breathe, but not get flies, and let sit. It takes a few weeks to a month, but the product ferments and then clears. You can then bottle it, and eventually the mother should appear in your new vinegar. Sabuzo says, it is a sour liquid used to add flavor to food or to clean things. It's made from things like apples or grapes, or sometimes just plain alcohol, but it has to go through a special process to become vinegar. First, the fruit or alcohol is turned into sugars, then it turns into alcohol, and finally, bacteria turn it sour, making it vinegar. This process makes vinegar taste tangy and gives it the power to clean things too. r/explainlikeimfive. Even still 5294 says, explain like I'm 5. Why do cats and other carnivores not need vegetables or even legumes or grains in their diet? Why do cats not have as much of a nutritional need for vegetables as many other animals do, the way humans need a fair amount of them daily? Also, to a far lesser extent, dogs need them, but less of them than humans do. Some herbivores eat only vegetables or grass, not even grains or legumes, such as rabbits and cows. Grass sounds like it would be a vegetable for an animal that eats it. Cats don't even eat legumes or grains. Other carnivores don't need vegetables either. Humans are omnivores and can go vegan with research, but if people mention carnivore, I want to slap them lol. That probably means we are closer to herbivores than carnivores? What makes carnivores able to digest only meat? Balloonist says, I'm asking this as offensively as possible. Did you not have basic science in school? Fiendish Rabbit says, an animal needs to get its macronutrients, fat, carbohydrates, proteins, and its micronutrients, minerals and vitamins mostly. For macronutrients, carnivores are pretty set. The animals you eat are built out of the same thing as you, so you get what you need from them. Micronutrients is harder. Humans can live on a hypercarnivorous diet. Some of our ancestors did, especially in Scandinavia where early Stone Age hunters lived on mostly fish and seal meat. However, it's not super healthy for us, because our cholesterol balance, those cholesterol and colon cancer issues are less of a problem to a cat where the average lifespan in the wild is less than a decade. You would also need fresh organ meat all the time, because humans can't manufacture vitamin C. Cats, like all other hypercarnivorous animals, can. Vitamin C, while available in plenty in vegetables and fruit, is, from a carnivorous source, only available in organ meat. So you need frequent fresh kills, since organ meat spoils really quickly. r/explainlikeimfive. Chikichistakapa says, explain like I'm 5, how do those two tiny pieces of blue painter's tape that they put on new windshields to hold them actually do anything? I mean, come on, two tiny pieces of tape and a giant heavy windshield getting rattled by the car when it's driving. How the heck does that do anything? Vaded says, the adhesive they use to attach the windshield to the car takes several hours to cure. The tape prevents shifting while it cures, and it's strong enough to hold up to gentle driving, but do not off-road, do not drive over speed bumps, etc. As it can only do so much. It's best not to drive at all for as long as you can avoid it. Loganman711 says, it's usually at the top and keeps the windshield from sliding down until the poly cures enough. Yakesbrufus says, it does help a bit if put on properly. I've also seen them use it horizontally over the seams, which is supposed to keep contaminants out of the cement. Eli5 says, I was told they help when you close the door to keep pressure from pushing window out, so crack your outside windows if the tape seems inadequate. Salt Hunt 7842 says, like, how are two tiny strips of tape supposed to hold a giant hunk of glass in place? So the tape isn't holding up the weight of the windshield at all. The windshield is glued to the car frame using a super strong adhesive that bonds. That adhesive is what's keeping the windshield in place. It's way stronger than any tape. What's the point of the tape then? It's just there as a precaution. It's like a little extra insurance to keep the windshield from shifting. The tape is just there to make sure it stays aligned, so you don't end up with a windshield that's a little crooked or has gaps that could leak. Think of it like the tape you use to hold a poster on the wall after putting glue dots in the corners. r/explainlikeimfive. Charming Usual 60-27 says, explain like I'm 5, what in human psychology pushes people to non-scientific things like astrology? Zach the person says, whenever you wonder, how can adults with functioning brains believe that? It's almost always because the belief does one of the following: gives them the feeling of control, either over something they can't control, or just gives them the feeling of power. Explain something they otherwise can't explain. This can be due to being uneducated, or because the thing they are trying to explain is practically unanswerable, such as what happened before the universe was created. Either way, the feeling of I don't know is often scary to people, and getting comfortable with that is something that has to be taught when they are children, but often isn't. Worse, a lot of children are taught the opposite growing up. Gives them a feeling of comfort, such as when psychics tell people they can speak to their dead loved ones before taking their money, of course. Living in caves, we evolved to prioritize these behaviors since they helped our survival in such a primitive society. These days though, they often lead us into trouble and is why skepticism and criticality need to be taught from a young age. Ammon here says, people are good at spotting patterns, sometimes even when there's no pattern, i.e. something random or accidental. Special Watch 8725 says, as everyone says, humans are pattern recognition specialists. I guess as we were evolving, it was evolutionarily advantageous to allow false positives in order to have a wider range of pattern discovery as opposed to allowing false negatives, where one is conservative about patterns and would rather miss a pattern than misidentify one. It accords nicely with the Platonic ideal of the scientific method, where you generally have a large number of hypotheses and relatively few significant results, or at least I think that's how it's supposed to work, absent perverse publication incentives. That aside, that means we have to accept that some patterns can persist, even though they have no real predictive power. Shushu0112 says, people have lost trust in traditional avenues of spirituality like churches. Humans are still going to human and be drawn to spirituality, and that's where the new age stuff comes in. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.